mean you're gonna fall behind the next year.
Right.
You
So
know,
what can you do about it?
it's
What can
ridiculous.
you do about it?
What am I gonna do about it?
Daddy,
Well, you can't do nothing about that.
you gotta go roll it up.
You can't do nothing about
But
it.
schools have to make plans.
They have to play.
They have to plan.
That's right.
And it has to be a plan of what you're saying as well as school.
Right.
So,
Right.
so like in Oklahoma City, they have the kids for one day, or 2 days on and 2 days off, you know. So
For the
it's
special needs or all the
for all the kids.
And they do like all this.
Yeah, they're gonna, so the kids have an at-home
Yeah,
program,
what's your
but
meeting?
they also have face-to-face.
Your Zoom ID? You have a Zoom account already?
At home. So what are we doing online?
My folks are that, you talking about Helen Sims,
Yeah.
Sylvia, that is responsible too?
I talked to Helen, I didn't talk to Sylvia. She was on the line earlier.
You know, and you just can't let them wave around in the wind.
Right, what about Kareem?
When COVID hit,
I just sent him the link.
it was a mess. When they shut down school, but it caught everybody. But the teachers didn't know what to do. They were like, okay,
3:30.
So they had their virtual learning at that point, and it was mostly student driven. You know, the teacher would send the information that they needed, weren't using.
3:38.
The teacher would send the information to them on their, what's it called, class dojo. They go into class dojo, grab their assignments, get their assignments done, send it back into the depository, and the teacher would pour the information. But then you had all your kids whose parents weren't around or weren't there because, for whatever reason, they, of course, none of their work got done because they never logged in. You know, they never signed
The
into
parents
school.
are not
Well,
making
when the
it easy.
school district over the summer,
My daughter said, I
the
was
school
first this
district
year,
was
She
what?
sent me a note yesterday, Steve, or
So this year,
Friday, I sent it on to you.
they
There was
did
one
virtual
question about what, how you gonna use that information, what you looking for.
So what therefore was expected of them, and the parents know what's expected of them.
Can between now and tomorrow night, whether you have it for Monday.
Where's his Zoom at?
But you know, everything's a real problem. Because my daughter said, Mom, everybody's going home.
And that's what's happening, that's what's happening. But this year, they're teaching on Zoom. The students know at 9:20, you make sure it's 9:20 when I open the room. If they wait in the wait room, get in, look, and get information. Open the room. We're ready for class. My granddaughter. She will open the room. So this is what lets me know. They put
Right,
God
they're-
in
they're-
there.
they're-
They know
I
their
sent him the link about
And
a while back.
You know why?
study,
Because they want
if they have
First broadcast.
they I think they're
So
studying.
A-N,
They can go to their
A-N,
students, what they need, they put their information, they doing it, they get back at a certain time, back in that classroom, the teacher do like this.
No, I need, I might have to.
Well, and I sit there and watch, I said, I wanna see how tomorrow works. It really works.
Okay.
Make it work.
It's on the TV.
And then it takes no parents. We got to stand up and we got to stop that.
The long box and the two plaques over the TV. On the left side, of the shelf.
My kid here,
Look at the red suitcase. That's what, yeah, that's what they said. You want one? You want one?
It could be
See, that's COVID. That was.
Some of it's programming from slavery.
That's.
No, some of it.
You see it?
Yeah, but I mean,
You didn't get me on one. You
we
didn't get me
we know right from wrong, and we know what we need to do.
That's true.
Slavery is not
It's
over,
negligent.
and people need to
A lot
stop,
of it's negligent.
people need to stop buying into that food. Slavery is
Your
not.
class is over.
Okay, y'all, keep watering and waiting.
No, oh, at 6 o'clock, when the race up at 6, I need to come up here. So stick around and come back with my makeup.
You really dog me. That's true, right? Back today, those old.
But they look at it in a positive way, it's one thing. Well, we know that, we know how to correct it.
Hello there.
What's the LLC?
No, but I got still at the meeting down here. Still. But if you can take a break.
It's the same way.
Yeah, Saturday.
People not acknowledging it.
It's my way. Don't go there. She's floating. You can get her to Right.
Independent.
I sent it to them. That's on me.
I probably will. But that's okay. We're gonna put you up front.
So they're looking at the LLC email. This why I said it. It's my.
I think Bill and I will both got to do something.
So you know it's there.
Okay.
And while I'm in dress,
Okay.
and I could never see what was going on.
You know, that's, if you got your back.
They don't know where you at.
You got cancer, you got cancer.
If you got diabetes, control it, that's what this patient's for. They offer that whatever test you have diabetes.
All right.
Well, if you don't do it, then I'll give you that way now. You need to put that out.
You are gonna be feeling like.
I can't believe that. It looks like a mountain. Almost like a mountain. I've been staring at you all morning with that thing, and and I've got one of them. You know the reason why you got black. I wanted black. They were every time I look at it, like, and then I said, no, that's the plan.
I have to pay.
Charlotte would have, if you don't have the word, the link, Charlotte would have, she'll be back there. She's got all the links. Unless, I have the link here.
Okay. They're coming, the people still eating, Opal's upstairs taking a nap, she'll be down in a second. So there's a couple things I wanted to just talk about real quick,
No,
for you people right here.
Charlotte's got them.
One of them is, the tracks from the annual meeting that get better each year. One of the things to improve that traction in the annual meeting is coming from our own Dr. Turnipseed. She is put together something that's in your book called the 2021 Annual Meeting Poster Design. There's a design for a poster for the annual meeting, and
It's not in our bank.
Because you have to buy that one.
You have to buy.
You have to buy that.
So the I need everybody to get that information.
this
Then you have to
poster
read it.
design
I-
information should be in the
This
back.
should be, this should be the.
Stuff like that should have been free.
That's the annual book. That's the one, like I said, we're only trying to cover the cost, so we said $10.
Yeah, but the poster design needs to be, everybody needs to be able to get to that.
Well, we can email it to them as a backup.
Okay. We'll get everybody a copy, we'll run some
So
copies
we wanna
off.
give it to people inside the meeting too.
Right.
Mhm.
And it
Thanks,
has
Shirley.
some, it has, so, I
All right, I'll talk about it then.
talk about the post.
Since I can't talk about what I really can't talk about.
You can talk about what you really can't talk about next.
Don't
It's
tell us
all
what
right,
you
we
really,
just talk
I'm just
about
don't
waiting
tell
for
us
more
what you
people to
really
show
can't
up.
talk
what's on
about.
your mind.
I really can't talk about
Come on.
that.
You
But
can't,
anyway, go ahead.
yeah, no, we're filling some time. The poster design contest.
Can I use your prop?
Yeah. What do you need? The book?
I don't have the flyer in front of me. Okay, yeah, the poster competition is, I think, gonna be a really beautiful collection of artwork, original artwork that we would like to appeal
Stand
to.
right there, the camera.
Everybody likes it.
Come on, teacher, you used to be at the front of the class, come on.
So, I would like for everybody, really, the idea was for everybody to leave from here with copies of the flyers to take and distribute to your destination, or your location. And it's appealing to absolutely everyone to submit ideas and concepts for next year, in accordance to next year's theme, but it's always all things Juneteenth, right? So anything that deals with freedom and American emancipation in general, again, specifically, you know, we make no apologies about us talking Black folks. And so, of course, it has to have images that represent and reflect our cause, our mission, and the mission. Yeah, I'm over 40, I need to Okay, so anyway, the mission, Juneteenth theme. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you. Again, the mission of Juneteenth, in case you need to be reminded, Juneteenth Independence Day will be recognized as a national holiday in reconciliation and healing on June 19th, each and every year, in order to complete the cycle of freedom. And so, with that, we're just saying it just needs to speak in some creative way to what the mandate and the mission of this organization is. All of the collection of art that comes in, we would also like to use the calendar. And the calendar would be, again, telling the historical dates and important and significant dates that are both reflected in Juneteenth 101, as well as the dates of other significant things that are going on in our community. You know, of course, the celebration of Juneteenth on Juneteenth, but then many of us have other things going on as well. And the other thing, for example, is with like Fannie Lou Hamer unveiling that just happened on her birthday, her 103rd birthday on October the 6th. So we took that day to unveil a monument or a historic sign, a marker in honor of her and the place where she stood to fight for full citizenship of us all, particularly African American women, who had just never really been empowered to vote. So on October the 6th of this year, last week, we unveiled the marker on the very courthouse steps where she was refused the right to register, and she came back, and she came back, and she came back again until she got what she came for. And of course, along the way, she took the beating. She took the humiliation. She took all of those things that really debilitated her physically, but never undoing the course. You know, it had nothing to do with her spirit and her passion for justice and her passion for freedom and the right for us all to have that voice. So things like that we could put in the calendar, and again, this could and should be a fundraiser unapologetic as possible to just say, no, these are the things that are pertinent to American history that we have not been learning in school on any level, college, primary school, any of it. In fact, in the state of Mississippi, it was just 6 years ago that they were allowed to teach civil rights in Mississippi. So the whole state, children were just not taught. So, much to the argument before, it's like, we gotta understand, we have not been taught. We don't know how to do most things, especially as it relates to leadership. How to step out and how to organize, how to put stuff together. We don't know because we're not trained to be leaders. And it does hinge on that slave mentality that has been included in all of our educational systems. And how do we rise up and above that is on us. That's our responsibility. How dare us think that, oh, you got a public school and you got white people in charge of the board and who's determining what the curriculum are. And it's like, excuse me, do you really believe that they're going to teach you how to be free and independent?
No. Not at
Come
all.
on now. Are you serious? So whose job is that? And we ain't doing what we're supposed to be doing by way of educating our children to step up and take leadership roles and not be ashamed of anything grandmama and them did, including picking cotton. So yeah, they did that as a choice to, look, we see this is the work, this is the plan, this is what's available, we gonna do it. And guess what? We gonna do the best that we can, and we made cotton king throughout the American South. And again, it was the number one commodity of all commodities, of all industries for over 200 years. But again, no one has ever bothered to thank them. No one has ever bothered to give them the reparations, or us, or whoever, for doing all that work. I say any R word you want to choose, but business people, we call it return on investment.
Come on now.
So what do we want as a return on all that sweat equity investment that grandmama and them have made to this country, to Britain, to France, to Europe, and not have ever even got the respect for somebody to even say thank you.
That's right.
It's like, how dare you? But then how dare us to not make that demand? It's like, come on, what's the problem? What's really going on? Why aren't we thinking like we're free to do whatever the hell we want to do and how we want to do it? You ain't got to ask permission. So, yeah, all of this and where we are today, it ain't nobody's fault at all at this point of the game. Now, there's so much more I can say on this, and I don't really want to get into it, but it's just, I think that NJOF is a vehicle, is a wonderful opportunity, is a chance, it's all those things that we know we should be doing and could be doing, and then to legislate for a official holiday is again an opportunity for us to step up and act like we know what the hell to do. And that means have industry, plural, that celebrate that freedom, that emancipation, that knowing that, okay, people gonna be looking for, masks that say freedom. People gonna be looking for not just t-shirts, they're gonna want books, they're gonna want centers, they need to have places all throughout America that shows and demonstrates the level of understanding that we have for our own history and culture, and the fact that we appreciate that. And we are demonstrating, therefore, to our children how to be respectful of your elders, of your ancestors, of the contributions that have been made. The fact that there are no statues that celebrate grandmama and them, all of them. Grandmama and them
who didn't get the education, because if they stepped up and acted like they wanted to be free, they would be shot and killed and lynched and every other kind of thing. All right? And we know this. So how can we demonstrate and show respect for the people who have made the ultimate sacrifice for us to be able to sit here so comfortably in some white man's hotel and give them all the money back? We should know better than that. But again, this is the charge, and this is what we gotta do. We gotta act like we know what the hell is it, and demonstrate to our children that this is how you be respectful. You establish monuments, you establish hotels, you establish school systems, you establish books, you establish you establish everything you need to show the world and demonstrate to the world that we be free, that we be understanding what freedom and emancipation truly is, and that their struggle didn't just go in vain, that they had the clarity and the vision of knowing that we did not want to become like them, because we had every chance in the world to kill every one of them, every day, all kind of ways. We know how to kill people too.
Come on.
But we chose not to become these because of what that would do to us in our spirit. That ain't what we want. That ain't who we be. But one of the challenges I'm going to leave you with is you tell me, and this is one that I challenge my students every single semester for the past 9 years. None of them have come up with the answer. And this is a challenge to you. You tell me what skill, talent, expertise, or profession is it that when Black folks get the education, the proper resources to back them so that they become masters in that skill, talent, expertise, and profession, show me where they're not the top of the very best at any of those skill, talent, expertise, or profession. Tell me where we're not at the top when we master a certain thing. And if you can tell me that, you don't have to take the final. You get 100 points. So, you know, they be struggling. They be trying to come up with, oh, I'm going to get that. I ain't taking it. How many do you think I have given credit? Not one. Not one. So, the real question is, why do you have to fight? Do all this, that, thing. So you tell me why you at the bottom. Because it's a choice that you make. And if you choose to have that slave mentality, guess what? That's exactly where your ass gonna be, at the bottom. So, have you chosen yet to be free? Is the question. Because if you are, then act like it. That's right. So that's
Amen.
calendar.
Amen. Amen.
Oh,
Come on now.
hey, everyone, that's great. And she's right, and that's one of the initiatives that we've taken off with. And to that end, we have been working, we did Juneteenth 101. We were looking to put together a package, and Charlie said, just make it 101, which was just so obvious, so clear, and it was a great piece of work. And now we're working on a narrative to the story so that everybody can tell it in a very cohesive and comprehensive manner. Several stories. So we're talking about the Juneteenth story and making the Juneteenth story the title for all the different idiosyncratic stories that are involved in Juneteenth, from like William Castle, right? Private Castle, his story, right? We got a bunch of those type of stories that are Juneteenth stories that we're going to assemble together. And to that end, that is a reading part, but that's still where we're trying to get to a curriculum that we can give out to different people across the country. Dr. Tucker Wicks studies curriculum, building them in Florida, and just recently, after some prompting and a good conversation, I got Dr. Dorcine Little to come on and help us. She had a good conversation with Calvin Pearson. Project 1619, Calvin had to tell her what the real deal was, not the New York Times madness. He's like, hey, this is the real deal. You know Calvin, Calvin is right in there with it, he's with us. So that's one of the things, another process that we started on a couple of years ago that we're working on is to develop a curriculum. And as Dr. Wood said, make it 8th grade and then work your way up and work your way down. So that's the process that we're in, and we're hoping to get it sped up because everybody's in the public is screaming for a curriculum, and they all come up with this madness. I mean, the Zen project is, I get the emails because I explain what they're doing. I'm like, what is this? Crazy. So, all these different people, nobody's coming up with a really cultural competent curriculum for us. There's not one out there. Okay?
But
So,
if we're going to say that we're the foremost experts in all of the stuff that goes out, we got to have something ready for them to be able to see and have it in place.
that's the reason why I pulled on people. I'm bringing Sade back in and Dr. Little back in, and all these people were working together. Let's get back in and let's get back to pushing with the curriculum.
Right.
So we're working hard to have it done. You've been on me for about a year. I might say we need to get the curriculum outlined and really worked out, but we got a lot of material. So it's always going to be more, and the podcasts and the newsletters, all that can be ancillary material to help support the curriculum what we want to teach. So we're hopefully by January have the outline laid out for the curriculum. Another guy who just called me, I'm trying to get back on. You Oklahoma people, he's trying to get himself right. So I told him to call Rosetta and Wilma. So Kevin Matthews, he wants to really try to do the right thing.
You mean to the next,
For the next election, maybe.
yeah.
Yeah, but he wants to get the education down because they haven't got one in Oklahoma yet. They got the money, they got the legislation, but they don't have a curriculum. And there's no real education package out. And they were going to use the Zen education package, but with all the pushback that they're getting, they don't have anything. So that's going to be my next thing about is the education team and how it's important for them to start to put together and to run the outline for a curriculum together to make sure that we can give it to people. So when school systems call and they look us up, we can say, here it is. And we've had those calls already. We had one from New Jersey. We had one from Kentucky, but we don't have one. We gave them Juneteenth 101 and the Opal's book, And so we're trying to do that. And to add on to that, Dr. Taylor, well, I don't have his book with me. You have his book with me.
Question. So how do you get those books, Ms. Opal's book and Dr. Taylor's book in the school system where they can use that?
So the school system is going to ask for a curriculum. The library can ask for a book. Okay. Dr. Taylor wrote this book, and Dr. Myers gave it to every governor who had it. Dr. Taylor was our advisor, and after the great work that Dr. Wicks and Dr. Turnipseed, he was impressed. He's even more impressed now after talking to people like Carl and other stuff with the symbol. So he's redoing this book. He wants to help, right? And he was on the phone. I just had someone who was all the way out of schedule, right? So we have enough resources and enough people, and now we got the platform to get it organized. And so now it's about that, developing the curriculum, to have a curriculum laid out, and then to have a supplementary material to go with it. Whether it be the elementary book that he has, this book, or the Juneteenth story, which we call the narratives. And we want to go further than that. The big fight that we had was where to start with Juneteenth 101 and where to end. I mean, Sade just came back from Africa. We want to trace the first people that came here now on a slave ship, but on the jet stream to Grimaldi, they ended up in South America. But we were here before that. Yep. Okay? We were here before that. But we know that. J.A. Rogers talked about it, right? And we have relationships with Chief Warhorse. Thank you, Rosetta, because I've had the chance to talk with her and her people. People even know more to her that she introduced me to down there. So they're down there fighting the pandemic. So we have the access to get to it. Now we have to assemble it all together and put it out, okay? Like I said, one thing I told Rosette, I said, listen, the person you need to have in your museum besides Jimmy Russian, John Horse, Juan Cabo, Juan Caballo, right? You gotta have him in there. I mean, that guy was incredible in what he did, right? But those are stories you don't get. We don't get this Peter Salem, or the Salem Forge. We don't get Lemuel Haynes. You know, I read Lemuel Haynes' writing after hearing about him for the first time like 2 months ago. This self-taught black man, I would say his writing is you can't even get it because the University of William and Mary has it under lock and key. You can only get it if Charlotte could probably get it because she's a university professor. When you read his writings on the excerpts of Liberty in 1776, his use of the language almost makes Frederick Douglass seem like what he was, just a failed country boy. And Lemuel Haynes, I was just, just completely amazed by his grasp on language and his plea for freedom. And we don't even know who he is, Lemuel Haynes. Lemuel Haynes. So education is one of the most key important things, and that's one of the things that can make us get to where we're at. So I want to thank you. Rosetta's on the education committee, and has contributed a lot to it.
Are any of these available for us here today?
This book is out of print.
Well, out of print beats nothing.
Yeah, so can we get permission to recirculate the book?
We're getting permission to be circulated, and Dr. Taylor's going to be on the next education call because he wants to revamp this book, add stuff into it, and he wants to talk about the Southern Underground Railroad and some of the stuff that we brought up in Juneteenth 101, which he wasn't aware of. Okay? So yeah, we're going to try to get this reprinted and republished, and one of the things he wants to do is publish it ourselves. We will publish it ourselves, along with Opal's book. Okay, so that's the second thing that we really want to get is the education piece, and really make sure that that's available. Of course, Juneteenth 101, get it out there. Opal at every single campaign stop that she went to, she gave it to the politician. And when you showed up in their office, start talking to them, they could understand. And then when you go to each one of them, no matter how you might think about it, once they realize they have a dog in the fight, their attitude changes. Mitch McConnell was like, what does Juneteenth have to do with me? So through our research, we found out that General Granger was in charge of the Kentucky 1st Militia, right? That's where he got his training from. And then he went and joined the Army. And after fighting and after getting through in Texas, guess what? He went back to Kentucky and continued to help them and was buried there. So, I think, what do you think Mitch McConnell thought when he found out he had a dog in the Juneteenth fight? Who do you think is responsible?
He wanted to claim credit, probably.
Yeah, he was all in. He was all in. Once you do that, same thing with Chuck Schumer, who had complained about not having. I said, hey, the troops that arrived in Texas were from New York. And show him. He's like, oh, I got a dog in the fight. Okay, I can see it, right? With the Kane, and Kane says, well, Juneteenth. I said, no, they were in Petersburg. They captured General Lee and Appomattox, and then they marched to Hampton Roads to get on the boat. They left out of Virginia. They refueled in Florida and South Carolina. All you guys got something to do with it. That's the power of knowledge to bring people in. That's what we've been doing in the Congress all the time. Every time somebody, well, what do I have to do with Juneteenth? Because they told us in the beginning, the reason why the bill didn't go anywhere, SJR 45 2012, is because it was all about Texas. So we had to take the scope of it beyond Texas and do the studying and drilling in. And thanks to people like Sharday, like Carl Allen, like Ron Brown, like all these people in the education committee that you see here, we started to pull all this information together. And so now we can give them something to make them have an interest of dogs in the fight. That's the power of education. So we're going to keep working on it. And if we call you, you need something like Dee just said, if you've got a story that don't know, let us know it so we can document it. Both get it to her and Dr. Turner's seat right there. Because we gotta restart recording stuff, okay? It's a shame when the federal government can send people out to record the last living slaves. They did that in the 20s. Send people out to record the last living slaves. We don't take enough initiatives for ourselves to record our history. Publish and print it, we got a problem.
We got a problem.
Right. That's
It's
what
also a challenge.
it's a challenge. It's a challenge. Okay? It's a challenge to simple information. It's a challenge to organize it. It's a challenge for a lot of things. It's a challenge that I'm sure that we can accomplish. Okay? Because we have one thing that a lot of people have that we need to get and preserve, and that is a lot of oral history. Okay? We have a lot of oral history, and that's some of the most accurate stuff. You know, we talked about General Granger putting up the post on the wall in Reedy Chapel, right? But do you know what we found out when I'm talking to Sam Collins? Sam Collins brought me numerous amount of people who never knew General Order Number 3 was posted up there. You know how they found out they were free? When the black men with guns arrived. That's how they knew they were free. They didn't get it from a poster from Granger, but in Galveston. They saw black men with guns, soldiers, coming off the boat, and we got the recordings of them. One lady said, she's a Faye Williams, she's an attorney. She said, my grandpa always told me the story about how freedom came, and it didn't come with General Order Number 3, it came with the black men with guns.
See, these again too are opportunities for scripts, for movies that we produce ourselves. Why are we doing folks to do stuff?
It's a perfect opportunity. It's exactly like that. If when you look at what Hollywood does, I worked in Hollywood for 15 years on the top level, right? And I know it's just a whole bunch of bad, right? And I looked at it and gave me the vision to see. They will produce a movie like Glory when the day before there was a victorious battle. Those guys fought in the battle and they were outnumbered in Oklahoma and they won. But Hollywood's not going to tell you that story. They're going to say, oh, here's 600 black men around the beach and got murdered. So it's a process. It's like telling you about who all prophets they Turner, but John Force was a better person. All prophets Christians Adam, the same before lived to be an old man and everybody revered him, and he had letters written to him by General George Washington. We didn't know that. They knew that, but you didn't know that about yourself. So that's the purpose and the script behind doing that, and having an organization first gather the information, be aware of it, awareness, education, socialization. You got to make people aware, you got to educate them, and you got to socialize them. It sounds like kindergarten, but we're in kindergarten, okay? Socialization has to happen on both sides, the white people and the black people. We both got to be socialized, right? So help out with the education committee is critical. We've got 3 things we really want everybody to take away from here, okay? One of them is to contribute to the education committee, okay? The other one is to think about and be prepared for the commemorative coin process, right? To add on top of what we're already doing with Juneteenth legislation, because we don't know what's going to happen. And people ask me, how do I feel? I'm glad Juneteenth got as much traction as it got, right? But if nothing happens, guess where we're going to be at? Same place we were before, okay? Not to get discouraged, don't get distracted by anything else, okay? Just keep on pushing, because we're going to continue to do Juneteenth, okay, as I explained. Yes, the president did put a quote in there that he made Juneteenth famous, right? And if you look right behind that quote, 2 sentences, is me right behind it. And there you're looking at, I'm quoted right behind them, right? In every newspaper where he did it. USA Today, Washington Times, 2 sentences down, you got my quote. We've been celebrating Juneteenth for 155 years. He made it famous to his people, which is true. Because D and I were getting the phone calls from people from Arkansas and Kentucky that weren't us. Where y'all at? Can we come by and visit you?
What was your quote you said?
Huh?
What was the quote you said? Your name was behind it. Your quote.
We're right behind them. You look at all the newspapers, my quote's right behind. We have been celebrating Juneteenth for 155 years.
name on it, did it?
Yeah. All the newspapers right behind that, and this made it look like I was contradicting them, whatever, how they wanna make it sound like that, but you still tell the truth.
So,
We did interviews for 2 weeks on the story, so there's multiple stories out there.
Yeah, because I'm like, hey, listen, yeah, he did. Because there's people who didn't know, they now know, okay? Which is good, because we were getting a phone call, yeah, from crazy places in Georgia. But y'all got a holiday? Not yet. You want to help us make it a holiday? They'll call up. I'm just like, hey, I don't know. Good old boys call up and, I don't know, where y'all at? Can we come visit you? Bring your guns. I got a gun too. Okay, but so the education part is key. We want to get that, everybody help with that. We want to be able to have everybody help with, get started, which is the one thing I just want to touch on real quick. If you're registered to vote, when you register to vote, there's a box on there, on every registration form. It asks, do you want to be an election officer? Check the box. Okay, check the box. Because as long as I can't keep saying, as long as you are registered and you put your vote in the hands of somebody else, you don't know what they're going to do. Okay, first it was to keep you from voting. Now we're all trying to get out and register to vote. But we have to be in the process. I gotta take your ballot and make sure it's counted right. I gotta make sure the process is followed correctly. You guys had a big problem down there in Georgia, and the only reason why they found out is because one lone black woman was an election official. One lone, she was by herself in there and saw something was wrong with the process. If she wasn't there, nobody would know.
But part of the training that they put you through, they tell you what to look for and what you can't allow and what you can't do. I just went through the training with you.
Right. But how many of us are going through that training?
I've been through it.
How many of us are involved? They can say that, and the people say, oh, yes, well, let's just do this anyway, because there's nobody looking. We're not looking. You can't get any more explicit than that. If you sign up, you register to vote, check the box to be an election official. And it's not that difficult. A lot of states pay you a little stipend to go ahead and do it. They take the time out, they take the day off, and no employer anywhere in their right mind is going to do anything to you to take the day off for your election official. They're not. Okay? It's like the best way to hide something from black people is to put it in the book.
But they're not gonna read it.
The best way to teach you out your vote is to put it right in front of you. Okay? So we have to get out there and be involved in the process. That was my whole thing about from voter to election officer. I'm an election judge, and I was a poll worker, now I'm a judge. I get to judge ballots. Okay, and ride with the ballots to the central office to make sure they get there. I didn't start out there. I started out on the voting machine, scanning votes in and make sure they were scanned right, which I found out was one of the most critical jobs because they disqualify a lot of stuff right there at the scanning procedure. Right? Like, oh, that vote don't count, throw it in the trash can. That vote don't count, throw it in the trash can. Okay? So it's critical that not only do you register to vote, but you become involved in the process. And over the next year, we're going to be pushing that, okay? I wish I could have pushed it sooner, but we need to have more of us collecting ballots, counting votes, and being involved with that whole process.
I got another challenge for you and for the software engineer, because you know, again, like you're saying, it's not who goes into council, but then also, you know, I have a real issue with those electronic ballots because you know it can be programmed to go into where you want it to go. Every vote, every other vote, every whatever. You can program these things to come out in the way that you want it to come out, which is the reason why Ivanka and her husband have invested in these voting machines all over the country. So my only thing is, as a challenge for you or people like you who know how to do these things, is make sure that those ballots have the person's name on it so that when the tally is scored, you can see that this person did actually vote and and it counted. So that if it got tossed out for any particular reason, for whatever reason, they can still come back and re-register or submit their vote because it didn't calculate. You
Right.
know, which seems real easy to do. You know, if you want to do a counting of and making sure that the democratic and democracy works, then everybody's vote should count.
And how can you tell who's winning? What kind of?
Well, that's my point, is that's the
But then,
software design.
So the software design, and different states have different formats for how they collect votes. Some states have ballots that are scanned in electronically ordered. Some states have screens that you touch the button on. So now, the process behind that, when you touch the button and you have a complete electronic voting, that has to do what she's talking about, the software check on that. And that's when the election officials who are counting responsible for the amount, they have a roster of everybody in the zone that's supposed to vote, right? And you would be surprised, you only get about 15 to 20% of people out of there, right? And so then they keep a track of how many people come in, how many ballots that they have, how many people voted, right? And if somebody marks their ballot the wrong way, all right, this one, the famous hanging chad. Remember the hanging chad?
Yeah.
That's because they clearly identified what they were going to vote on, but it didn't fall out. It was just hanging on. Okay? And so they considered that not a complete vote and threw that out, right? So there's a lot of ways that your vote can be thrown
Which is
out.
why
It's
Al
not there.
Gore lost the presidential
Yeah.
election.
Yeah.
So again, you know, it seems like, I mean, we have to think about stuff.
That's legislation, yeah, that's legislation. The first thing you have to do in order to get any of that traction to get there, what she's talking about, because there's a lot of stuff. In my state, everything's done by electronic, by paper ballot. You have to mark the ballot. But if you don't mark the ballot completely in, or if it doesn't do something, you go scan it, it kicks it back to you, right? And then the scanning officer has the choice of throwing your vote away or telling you to go back and fix it. Right? So I know because a lot of times, this one lady said, "Oh, they always threw my vote away." I'm like, "No, you can go back there and fix it. Go back and fix your ballot and put it back in."
You can't throw away any of those ballots, even the ones that for some reason it didn't calculate properly and it kicked it to the bottom repository that they have. You have to stay there and scan those. You
Yeah,
can't
they
throw
count
any of
for 'em,
those
yeah.
away.
But and even if they do that, a lot of times they'll let you correct the fault if you're voting in person. But if you don't know that, you can make a fault on your ballot and it kicks it back out, and the guy just like he's not going to tell you because your votes don't count. You're black, so they put it in another vote. But they can tell you can go back and fix the ballot or request a new ballot. That's part of being part of the process. That's what I mean. There's a whole bunch of those that are there. And she's absolutely right. There's a whole bunch of ways that stuff can go wrong. But the only way we can start to correct it is by putting eyes on it. And if our eyes aren't on it, it's not going to get corrected. Sylvia?
No, I was just saying, you're right. I mean, they pull that ballot and give you another ballot. You know, opportunity to fix your mistake.
Right.
Yeah.
But a lot of times they'll spoil that ballot and won't tell you to get another one. Okay? Unless you have somebody that's there. It's critical. It's the next critical logical progression. You go from registering to vote and have a lot of people registering to vote to being involved in the election process. Okay? You can complain about it. And you know, when I started telling young people that they could be involved in it, like Adoni Rotini and Octavia Smith, and these guys, like, you guys could be involved in the process. They didn't know. I said, just check the down box and they're going to call you up and say, can you work the election? You're in there. Do what you're told, follow it, and do it. And so instead of complaining about my votes don't count, get in there and make your vote count. You know, one of my favorite sayings that I got, I had to admit was by Medgar Evers. You know what he said? This is back in the 60s. He said, if you don't like what's going on in the Republican Party, get in there and change it. For office.
And that's what his brother did. It didn't change the thing.
Yeah, I know. You got to have a lot more traction in there. You can go in as a lone wolf, but you So that's all about it, from voter to election official, okay? We got Dee, Penny, Sylvia, I know, and myself, all have been election officials, election officers, okay? It takes a little bit of time, it is a long day, right?
And you're gonna deal with some nonsense.
Yeah.
Do a lot of it.
Yeah.
But we have to get in there and deal with it. We have to get in there and deal with it, okay?
And when they see your face, they know they better do it right. Because if you watching, they know you're gonna tell somebody.
Right,
With the quickness.
with the quickness, and that's what we need, all across the nation. We need our people to be involved, and be election officers, election officials, and get involved. Besides just registering people to vote, get in there and take those ballots.
Well, what I can't get ready for is how the Democrats and whoever's involved can allow one place to vote and close all the rest of them down in the city. You got a large city, and you have one place to vote, and you have lines of people, they don't vote for 5, 6 hours later. And how can we allow them to close the booth and knowing the election is coming? Where are the people that plan all this? And allow them to close the booth or you can't
They
vote?
start where I'm telling you where you're at right now. You work your way up the ladder.
Now, I'm talking about laws about them closing booths, closing polling places.
And getting rid of the deposit voting boxes.
Yeah.
That's all the same people that are election officers, the election
Where are our
officials,
people with the
election
brains to
judges.
stop them from doing this and making sure before election that you have enough places to vote and enough places open to vote where it can occur? If you have a
If
thousand
you are
places,
not
you
in-
don't have so many votes,
Rosetta,
vote.
first thing you have to do is sign up to get involved in the process.
No, I'm talking about laws. I don't have to sign a bill or have this in place.
When they decide to close that, they got a group of election officials and say, let's close this, this, and this. And guess who's not among those group of election officials?
People that look like
Us.
I don't even
But they
think
didn't
to
do it
make
with
sure
all the
that
election
those there.
officials in all the states. Some of them did it behind closed doors. And they just said, remove those boxes from these counties to that county, and they have to go 300 miles to go.
Vote
And
and
that-
do that
and-
same
and if
amount
you-
all day.
And if you're not part of the process, like we're not, that's how they do it.
No,
If you stand up and object and say, hold a second, this ain't right, but there's nobody objecting saying it's not right, you're saying it, but you're not in the process. You
no,
have
they
to
need
start
to
from
be held
there.
accountable. The people in place need to be held accountable.
We need to be held accountable.
We held accountable, not them.
Letting stuff happen. We need to be held accountable.
Right.
And until we are held accountable by us.
Okay, now here's what you do. When this happens, they ask us to be fired for closing the sit down.
That should be, if it was fair, but it's not.
No, I'm telling you what needs to happen legally. They need, if they don't have sense enough to keep the laws and say, for 1,000 people, we don't need 5 places for them to vote. And these people in authority closing down, they ask them to be fired.
The reason why they do it is because we're not in the process, Rosetta, and this is the first step in getting into the process. It's the first step in getting into the process, okay? Sylvia, you got that look on your face.
No, I'm good.
All right.
I was just thinking, it's a fight.
What about the town hall?
Yeah, Kareem supposed to call me back when he got it set up.
You know, that's gonna be a problem.
And everybody.
His wife is on it.
And don't say nothing.
I understand, but, you know, they done did a lot of work to be prepared for this question.
Well, I'm calling right now again, to see where he's at.
And he's coming back at 5:30.
Now, they've been knowing all this time that we was gonna be voting. And then the last minute, they closed them all down.
They was planning to do it, but they already in effect. They already in effect. It just didn't start today.
You know, it's in your face.
Dead in your
And
face.
it's like, damn.
And everybody just sit there and watch it.
Gangster.
Gangsta is real word.
Now, listen, after it's all over, we need to file some lawsuits, and when we go and look at this thing, and when they done close it down, we need to start taking action on that.
You took the sorting machine out of the post office and destroyed it.
Did it?
Okay,
Yeah, they take it.
we're gonna take
And
a,
even when they told them they need
take,
to put
we're
it
want to take a couple minutes right now. I want Dr. Turner to come up and talk about cotton and the cotton picking memorial that she was talking, she wanted to do, so that I can, sit down and call Brother Green. You got it? With PowerPoint.
Don't do that PowerPoint.
Oh, was it cotton? Is that cotton? Oh, I thought you bought some cotton. Yeah. You're coming right after her. Grandmama plus them.
Hold on. Okay, the one that you have long, that's the one that's supposed to be the one with the logo. The one that you have as the long one is supposed to be the two posters. You have the size that's wrong. Does that make sense? No, no, it doesn't. If you look at the very first email that I sent 3 distinct emails so that they couldn't be confused. The very first one was the whole process, you guys got that without issue. The second one, it says second printing request. If you look at it, it says it's supposed to be a retractable, and I gave a sample with the logo. If you find that email, you'll see that it says retractable. And then the third email said 2 posters, 20 by 30, with the 18 names. If you go back to my original email, you will see it.
They're gonna be at the, hotel, we'll have to change the time to.
Yes,
Is that 6 o'clock?
there's 2 posters. Yes. So,
7 o'clock. No, I'm looking, that's.
what I approved was
We're
that
supposed to
the
go over there.
listing of the names looked good. The presentation was
Somebody else has
approved.
received that.
But
You can call Leslie. You got Leslie's number?
okay. And you can just give it to me, but, you know, I'll take it as a retractable banner. But I want to confirm that you have the logo as a retractable banner, because that's my money maker. Those are not posters. That is a, so if I don't get 2 posters this time, I'm cool, not a problem. But I need those logos on a retractable banner, and I need those logos right. Exactly. But if you look at my email, my email specifically say what's supposed to be what.
So then we got down here. That's supposed to be the room for one of the people. That's the 3 to 4. They're supposed to be on their way to the Western Main.
So we understand. But that one needs to be a retractable, needs those logos to be enlarged and up and down. That is what we, if I don't get the two posters, I don't care right now.
You want me to try now?
With the
Huh?
two names, that's fine.
Yeah, go
Those
now.
logos, it's gotta go on the retract. And the design that's fine, the way it's designed, it's just gotta be on a retract. So, move it around, put it up in there. On a retract. Okay? Thank you. I'll keep you,
Are you in the chair?
I will keep myself, I will keep myself eye on it.
I'll drag one.
My wife said, oh, you are.
But you're not gonna, remember you said you was telling the point.
Yes, sir.
You're not gonna be able to do that. You gotta force them game. And you know,
Okay.
when avoid that kind of integrity. Let me get somebody that.
They can turn it right on.
You know, they do. I'm just saying.
Yeah, okay, I-
So,
Okay, so, we had the, the live shot. Don't you dare. Guess what's cozy corner?
Oh, it was good.
Mhm.
The corn was good, the barbecue was good. Cozy corner.
Cozy corner.
It was amazing.
Yes.
Where is that?
Wait a minute, this is the chief express on Friday.
They gave me so much.
I don't know.
And what's
No,
her name?
that's Central.
Leslie
This is
Walton.
Cozy Corner.
Like I said, she's my coordinator. And they were decorating earlier, they were supposed to be having something else. Give me a second.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Rosetta Sanchez. I'm the founder of the Oklahoma Black Museum and the National Jazz Legacy Museum. And they're both in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. This is Dr. Dorothy Spagner Little. And then she's going to be on our panel also, Mr. Steve Williams. So I'm going to start off by saying that we believe that education is extremely important in your child's life because what they learn at an early age affects them later on. And we have to expose them to what we want them to be about when they're little, because they come to the world not knowing a thing. And they watch us. So everything that they need to know, we need to lead them and guide them into that area. So I'm gonna start off by saying that how music and art is how important it is in the child's life. Because what it can do is open up their mind to receive other mental and intellectual things. And I'm fortunate that my mother and father exposed all of us, the six of us, they gave us music. In fact, I had to take piano lessons for about 9 years. I didn't really want to go to be in my recital. And every time I had to get ready to have a recital, I get sick. People scared to get up and perform. He said, girl, I spent all this money on you, you're going to get up and you're going to be on that recital today. So anyway, so we all in my family studied music. And again, back in our day, it was part of our curriculum in high school. So everybody at Douglas High School in Oklahoma City, we studied music, and we had a top band of the state every year. The top band. I studied piano, I played the drums for about 3 or 4 years. I played the French horn for 3 or 4 years. And I learned how to play the viola. And so, with that in mind, my oldest brother played the trumpet. He had the opportunity to play. If you all have heard of Maynard Ferguson, it was a big band at that time. And because of his skills on the trumpet, they allowed him to play a solo with the Maynard Ferguson band when they came in a period of Oklahoma City. My baby brother, Larry, they say is one of the best drummers in Oklahoma. And he scats while he's playing the drums. And all the musicians come up, is Larry your brother? I said, yeah. And Larry's the best drummer in Oklahoma. He doesn't play as much now as he used to. My sister, she's been all over the world singing. Some of her friends are Earth, Wind, and Fire. Sometimes music can open up doors for many avenues of your life, as well as art. And so I'm going to start off by talking also about how this museum got started. Okay, we went down to, you heard Steve talk about China Johnson, and one of our other people he knows about now is Nick and I. We all went down to the 50th anniversary of Edmund Pettit Bridge celebration. So, they had vendors all set up, and I was walking through where all the vendors were, and I had one of my purses, I designed purses. And this one lady ran up to me, had a picture come up to me, and she said, "Show me the codes of their booth." So after talking to her for a long time, and she was trying to find out about my purse, she's a fashion designer too, but she had a vendor. So, after talking to her, she said, "Well, girl, you need to come down here to New Orleans and give us some ideas about what we can do as far as because I had told about our museum, but I had found it." And so, after talking to her back and forth, I made a trip down there. We talked about Congo Square. And Treme is one of the oldest black neighborhoods in the United States. They showed me Treme, and we went to Congo Square where the slaves used to go and play every Sunday. And we worked back and forth with the city council trying to find a place to start a jazz legacy museum down there. But we never could do it because the city had plans for this one huge auditorium down there, right there in Treme. They had other plans for it. So they made all kinds of excuses, reason why we couldn't do anything down there. We talked with there was another man that owned the Petite Jazz Museum down there. We couldn't get our heads together. So after talking to Dr. Miles and all of them, and the other people in Oklahoma City, I said, well, we can do it in Oklahoma City. There's no rules saying that, where you put a museum, you can put them anywhere you want to put one. So we said, with our background in history in Oklahoma City, with top jazz artists, we can do it right here in Oklahoma City and not have to go back and forth to New Orleans. And so with that in mind, we decided to start the museum right there in Oklahoma City. And so at first, Dr. Miles had some reservations because whatever reason. But anyway, after I talked him into it, he said, "Okay, let's do it." He said because two other jazz artists had said that this is what we need to do, but they died and never did do it. So he said, "Well, let's go on and do it now, while we still can." So we got started with the plans and everything, and then we died. Which we still had done some things, and so.
And now you want me to take up the call.
I was thinking that.
But anyway, here's where we are right now. I'm not gonna list all those great jazz artists how much time are we gonna see?
Just a couple minutes.
But I'm gonna see if you're gonna take a couple. But you on here too now, you got to be more than a couple. So anyway, what we've done so far is we have a professional athlete who said he would buy the location. We found an old church in the black neighborhood that's just been sitting there for years and it's kind of dilapidated. And so he said, "Well, I'll buy it if I can be assured that you all are not going to just let it sit there and rot." And so we have gotten OU, Oklahoma University, said that they would partner with us, the architectural and interior design department. They're going to partner with us. They've already done what they said they were going to do. We have about 13 art presentations from their students and the department down there on what we should do to the museum. They did history on African American jazz and what have you. And we talked about some of the things that we'd like to see in the museum. And so we have 13 presentations of what they put together. We went down there 4 or 5 times, 6 to 8 hours each time, and went through it with all the students. And like I said, I have all those presentations. So the next step here is we have another architectural firm from Oklahoma who has done other projects similar to this. They have put together their new preservation project. They have put together the next steps that we have to take in order to make this all happen. So right now, we're in the stages of raising money, and we need your help to make this happen because this is a national project. And what we have in mind is we're going to do 50 states of Black history of early jazz musicians. So this will be a compilation of 50 states. We want to do college jazz lessons. Colleges have great jazz bands, I'm telling you. They're the best unknown, the best kept secret. And I know I went to Lincoln University, and when I go up there homecoming and hear that band, I can't believe they're so far out that advanced. But you see, I went to Lincoln University, and that's where, the hip cats come from East St. Louis and St. Louis, Chicago. And so like when I was coming up, I studied classical music, and my oldest brother, he was into jazz, so he kept on playing jazz all day long. So I switched over from classical, liking classical to jazz. And so by going to Lincoln University, listening to all these hip cats from St. Louis and Chicago, then, that's where I'm coming from. So I studied jazz, and I can talk to you about any of it. I study all of it, hip hop, I know all that stuff, but some of the music. But I'm just saying the early training and develop an ear for music can lead you into everything else. And it opens your mind to receive other intellectual properties. And so I'm gonna close by saying that I'm not gonna list some of these great groups from Oklahoma. We celebrate Jimmy Rushing. Have y'all ever heard of him? He's one of the greatest jazz blues singers that ever lived.
Mr. 5x5.
It's 5x5. So we celebrate him when Dr. Miles came down and he said, y'all need to be celebrating Jimmy Rushing. And so from that moment on, we've been celebrating Jimmy Rushing. This will be our 7th year next year. And then also, Don
No,
Cherry.
Oklahoma's great.
You have to look him up. He's, I know, best kept secret too. John Cherry was
Plays a pocket trumpet.
yeah, he went over to Africa
Mm-hmm.
and
Him and Hugh Master Taylor hung out.
yeah. So anyway, we have developed the Jazz Legacy Museum, and we're gonna need everybody help raise money because everybody will be involved. Okay, now what we're doing is if we don't get this stuff etched in stone now, we're gonna lose it. Because these white people are taking it over. And if you notice, I've been looking at their books on jazz. They're showing all these white, and there's nothing wrong with that because they're good too. They're good too, but we want to etch in stone the origin of it. See, because we are the ones that in one of the greatest art forms in the world. And we want to let people know that this is the African American art form. And Dr. Myers always said, he said, Hubert Blake said that when they dropped the slaves off anywhere in the world, they left hot music and it all sounded different. And what we got here in America is gospel, blues, and jazz. And so they were persecuting black folks, slaves, hanging them and making them pick cotton. So they started singing to the Lord. That's where they got the gospel. And then after they started living amongst each other, they started singing the blues. You know how we all live together and start getting on people's nerves? So they started singing the blues. And then when the white people would throw those trumpets and the instruments away, the black slaves would pick them up and start improvising, playing by ear. So this is a gift from God. Now, I studied classical music. Everybody can't play by ear. So that's an extra gift from God. Now, white people right there is down on short. And then right now, some of them can play now, and it's getting better for them. But they usually put their stuff on, they write it down. Black folks be playing by ear, they be listening. And tell you what, that's hard to do, is to be able to play and blend in with the rest of the artists. So I'm gonna shut up and I'm gonna let Dr. Lee take over.
Okay, well, I changed my thoughts several times since Rosetta was talking. But first thing I want to mention about the curriculum for Juneteenth, a word has been running around in my head ever since Steve contacted me about helping write a curriculum for our school. And the perspective that I think we should approach a curriculum from the teachers. And this means that that people are instrumental in changing their own lives. And so we want to emphasize that the slaves were instrumental in freeing themselves, that they weren't waiting around for a savior. Of course, there was the image of the slaves were happy and that they were docile and all that. But all the slaves were happy. All the slaves were docile. So we need to emphasize how they were instrumental in walking to freedom, in swimming to freedom, in rowing to freedom, joining an army to fight for their freedom, all of the ways they helped themselves become free because they were already free in their mind. Also, we need to be cognizant of what skills the slaves had. coming to this conference has been very enlightening and invigorating for me. I've been retired for 6 years, so I've been away from conferences for a long time. And, but I'm energized by the talent, by the intellect, by the conversations. And that's what white people are afraid of. They're afraid of our beauty. They're afraid of our intelligence. And so that's why they try to tell us that we're the opposite of all that's beautiful. And so we need to show the world, who we really are and invigorate our children and let them know what their name, who they are named after when they have these black names, what their heritage is. I was listening to MSN and a doctor was on there and he told a story that I had never heard before, that back in the 1700s, the colonists were beset by smallpox. So it was wiping out a population of people just like the flu virus is now. And one of the slaves from Africa told them that they had been exposed to smallpox too, and they had a cure for it. They would take the pus or whatever that came out of the smallpox from someone who had it, and they would infect the other people, and they built up immunity to smallpox. That's how vaccines came about, was because of the knowledge from Africa. That was like a thunderbolt to me. I've heard of salt and everybody else. But I hadn't heard of that cure coming from, so that's the basis for all of vaccines now, is to be cured by the cause. So anyway, that's agency. That's what I would like, what I would like for us to emphasize.
Otherwise known as self-determination.
Yes, and back to your cotton pickers memorial, some of the insults that I've seen recently from the right wing or the militia or whoever they are, they had signs that go back to picking cotton. And so we need to let them know how hardy you had to be. I picked cotton one time when I was a child. I think I picked all day back to pick 9 pounds. So we got people that were picking 500 pounds of cotton. That's
Bobby Rush, who just left there, talked about 400 pounds in the interview.
right. And then what happened to the cotton? The development of the cloth and all that. That was the invention. All of this needs to be known is that America will not be America without black people. So that's right. That's right. Slavery made America great. But
America became rich. Cotton, sugar, and tobacco. That's what made America rich. And we have never got paid.
Right, and the delegation.
And labor from it.
yeah. So we need to turn everything on its head. The next thing I know but the next thing I wanted to mention was that Oklahoma is known for Black Wall Street. And the thing that distinguished Black Wall Street from any other black neighborhood in towns in America that had a large black population. Number one, it had money that was fueled by land that had oil wells on it. And that land was a part of the emancipation that they received from the Native Americans. So a lot of people that were emancipated, a lot of the black towns were founded on land that was given to them through the 1866 treaties, where the tribes had to give their former slaves a significant amount of land. Right. So, so the thing that distinguished Black Wall Street was they had a little bit more money than other black towns, and it was burned to the ground. So, nothing left. There was one church that was left. But there were black towns and there were black neighborhoods in every significant city that had a black population. So we had Black Wall Streets all over the country in different towns. There were bankers in there were restaurant owners, there were tailors, there were funeral home owners. So people had a mind to be business owners. They had the mind to be entrepreneurs. So Black Wall Street is not an anomaly. It is a part of our history. And we need to know that at one time we were independent people, even though we lived under segregation. We took care of ourselves. We shopped with ourselves. The story is that in Black Wall Street, the dollar circulated 50 times before it left the community. And so we need to teach our students that we once did own everything that we needed, right? And now,
All those black towns supported Black Wall Street. Everybody grew something, made something, did something, extended from Langston to Tulsa. Sorry.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, now it circulates about 30 seconds.
right.
30 seconds, yeah.
Right. But we still have, you talking about music. now.
Right, you guys wanna have a little bit of fun? I haven't done this since I was in college. We're gonna talk about music some. Okay, and so I want you guys to understand, be knowledgeable. When I was in between college, I taught at a school called the Denver Afro-American Musicians and Composers Association, DIAMCA. The most famous person out of there was a little white kid by the name of Trey Anastasio. Anybody know Trey Anastasio?
No.
You guys don't know Trey. Trey is the most famous white boy musician that there is. He plays with a group called Fish, Phisa, Fish, right? Little redhead kid that everybody talks about. He used to be in my class when I was teaching music in Denver. Okay, I had a couple people because you're not white. But he plays funk music with white people. So Fish, you can find Phisa, Fish. But anyway, I use colors and stuff. I didn't have time to draw the chart. So all the time you hear us talk about music and the origins of music is in the blues and jazz. Everything is taken from there, right? For the common lay person, it's kind of like, okay, they said it. They kind of said it. In this particular instance, I'm going to give you a music elementary 101 so that you can understand what we're talking about, okay? Right about, I wrote out a real simple chart, and then use color, use the color, okay? Everybody knows the sound of music. You guys know the song, do a deer, a female deer, red drop of golden sun, me a name, I call myself, one way to run. Yeah. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Music is binary and communication language. One of the craziest things that you know about is the binary code for computer systems has 8 digits. Music has 8 digits, okay? And the 8 digits decide where you're at. And they're defined like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Is that where you started at? Just like a 0 is in binary numbers, okay? So every note in what they call scale has a number to it, right? Now, music is played in a series of cycles. There's a coordination of order which you play things in, all right? Blues music has one of the most basic, fundamental progressions that there are that makes the blues sound what it is. And that's called 1, 4, 5 on Roman numerals, number 1, A, number 4, D, number 5, E. 1, 4, 5. That's a standard blues progression over a series of stretch of time, right? 1, 4, 5, 1, 4, 5, 1, 4, 5. So if you're playing the blues and everybody says we're playing a blues in A, right? Then everybody's going to know that the first chord is going to be A, right? The second chord is going to be D, and the third chord is going to be E, right? And so they got that. They know where it's 1, 4, 5. And you play your music accordingly like that, and the notes along with it. Okay, so those notes are coordinated and they work in relationship with a scale, a piano. This is a little funny known thing that I'm gonna tell you about this. Stevie Wonder used to sing Ebony and Ivory, right? This is a little known thing that you can try when you're on the keyboard. If you want to play, If you want to play a gospel song that is a white gospel song, right? Generally a white song that people play, like "Oh Hail Mary," right? You will play that song, and when you play that song, the methodology for that song and the origin for that song, from the classical aspect of it, guess what? You're gonna play it on. You're gonna play all the white keys. If you're going to play a song like Amazing Grace or Negro Spiritual, guess what keys you're going to play on?
Black.
All the black keys. Okay, the black keys are called pentatonics. Okay, there's a pentatonic type of scale. Pentatonic type of scale moves a little bit differently from that. Okay, so if you're here, this is 1, this is 4, this is 5. The pattern is universal. If you take it, and these are called whole notes. So, and they have a whole sounding type of thing with not much flavor. These are half steps. You can go a half step where it is flavor. 1, 4, 5. Different set. So that 1, 4, 5 progression is called a blues progression. It's also the same notes and the same chord progressions that play rock and roll, country and western, hip hop, and the vast majority of music comes from that progression. The second number one popular progression is used in blues and pop songs is called 2-5-1. And one of the most famous 2-5-1 songs that is not a blues song that you know is I write songs that make the whole world sing. Okay, We Are the World. Those are all 2-5-1 progressions, which are inversions of blues. Okay, the 2 comes from the 4. Right? 2 comes from the 4. It's half cut in that, right? The 5 is right here, and the 1 still from there. It's just an inversion of the standard blues progression. These numbers, this formula generates 85% literally of American music. This is what we mean by everything comes from the blues. Okay, even jazz. What jazz does is they take and they combine these 2 compressions together, they invert these together, they string them out, they make them longer. And what I mean by invert them is instead of putting the stacked notes, instead of playing a chord A, C, E, they put the C in the bottom, the A in the middle, and change around to give it a different sound. So theoretically, what we're talking about, the reason why we say this, you understand, is the vast majority of music, like you said, close to 85% of it, comes from these 2 progressions, which are directly African, which are directly the same in every type of music. When you listen to it, and if you can start to hear what you call the root tone or what the resolve, that's the 1. That's the bottom. The 1 and the 8 are the same, right? The 1 and 8, that's the resolution at the bottom. You can hear it. And then you can start to hear it over, like I told my son who was playing, I said, I don't want to play the blues, Dad. You're a guitar player. You got one of the blues. I want to play this. I'm like, well, let me tell you where it comes from. And then he could hear it now, the progressions of the 1, 4, 5. He said, oh, that's a blues song. Okay? So this is what we're talking about when we say all the music in America comes from the blues. This is technically how it works. Now, there's a little bit more things that you can add on to that. One of the things that Doc was doing, and we used to spend hours talking about, was the progression and the relationship between jazz and gospel. Because guess what? The vast majority of gospel songs are played with a 1, 4, 5 progression. The vast majority of gospel songs are 1, 4, 5. So she said they prayed to God. Some people said they played the blues. It's like the chicken and the egg. Which one came first, gospel or blues? Well, I got the blues from being out here in the field picking cotton. I'm praying to God for help. It's one of the 2, they all came out about the same time at the same place from the same struggle. Okay? But from that, every single thing comes out. Now, be aware that there are similarities in other types of music. And one of the most insidious spots right now that I just have to speak on right now is when I was in high school, my high school jazz band ensemble was rated one of the best in the country. And we played against another group of kids from New Orleans. And we beat them. Denver beat out New Orleans in jazz band. People looked at Downbeat magazine. I was a trumpet player in my band. The trumpet player in the band was by this kid I didn't wish myself. Right? And we beat their band down.
You be putting yourself in things.
Our And we had to
I'm gonna check that out.
check it out. Downbeat Magazine, 1978. Number one jazz band in the country, career education center. Although we had a little advantage, it was just his school that won, right? And my school was a magnet school, which had all the musicians from Denver into the magnet school. It was a little bit unfair competition, but we still won, right? Chuck Jones came, played the flugelhorn, you know. But the music fundamentals, as she was saying, a lot of people, they did this by ear. And the one thing I have to say about that is, I growing up as a kid, I was in school, they handed me a chart, and I learned like this: do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. And then, just frankly, after fighting white kids every day in school in Denver, my mom finally said, okay, enough, we're gonna go move to Park Hill. So you can stop fighting them. And I moved in, the next door neighbor, there was some kids playing a record off the street, and I went in and asked them if I could join the band. And they said, yeah, come on in. I said, well, where's your music at? And they just looked at me like I was crazy. They're like, music? You just listen to the record and play what's on it. And I was completely amazed. I'm like, how y'all do that? They're my age. And we were 14, 15 years old. And they're just ripping off stuff. Johnny Rogers just came back. His mom made him come back and play with James Brown. He was a little kid. He was 14 years old. James Brown wanted to come play with his mom, so he had to come back home. You know. So if you've heard any of those Rex commercials in the 90s, that's my homeboy, Johnny Rogers, the drums. You know. And so they taught me how to put this aside and to use this. Here. Use the ear. Right? But a lot of times listening to other people, since my main instrument was guitar and trumpet, I listened to those guys learn how to play. And then we're able to apply this theory back to it. But the key thing that I just want to say, not to digress too much anymore, is this is the formula. This is what everybody's talking about right here. 145-251. Over 90% of American music is this, and it comes from us. Okay, it comes from us. So that's technically what people are talking about when they say rock and roll, funk, classical, bluegrass, rock and roll, funk, bluegrass, all different types of idioms of American music. They're all generated around this core element right here. Now, there's a lot more to it, but that's the core element that makes it rhyme, and that's directly after. Okay? So that's just simple. So somebody says, oh yeah, well why? Because it's based off the same pattern. Okay, how you play it, all notes are the same. This is one of the great things. Notes don't change. The staff don't change. The music paper don't change. So what makes one music sound different from something else? If I tell a rock and roll player to play me a C major 7 chord, or if I tell Bobby Rush to play me a C major 7 chord, it's the same chord, but what's the difference? Closer. How? It's the how. All the music, all the notes, all the components are the same. But it's how you apply yourself to them that makes it what it is.
Soul factor.
It's the soul factor.
It's a
All-
cultural thing. It's a
Yeah.
spiritual thing.
It's a spiritual thing. It's all that. But the same
And Beethoven
components.
was black.
It's
So
like
classical music.
It's like everybody can draw and write on a piece of paper. Some people write better than others. In music, it's all the same notes, it's all the same components, but applied is something a little bit different. So this is what we really want. I just want everybody to understand that technically, just a little bit theory. You understand that all the notes are numbered, and this right here is the formula, right? This is the formula that makes the vast majority of American music run. Anybody got any questions?
I like that.
Can I finish?
Great job.
I just want to make 2 sentences, so you won't think I'm crazy for sitting here talking about the all-black towns and Black Wall Street. The reason I mention the all-black towns is because Oklahoma is the only state that had 50 all-black towns. They had Black Wall Street and they had East Deuce in Oklahoma City. The fact that they had this many black people that were entrepreneurs, that had money, it was the underpinning of the music scene in Oklahoma. Why we created so many artists in Oklahoma during this time, because they had an audience, they had a paying audience. So the economy of the black towns and Black Wall Street and these Deuce supported these artists. And so, and also Oklahoma is a crossroads. I-35, which runs from Mexico to Canada, comes straight through Oklahoma City. I-40 that connects California to New York comes straight through Oklahoma City. They intersect in Oklahoma City. So all of the musicians that were transferring from New Orleans, from Texas, and going to Kansas City stopped in Oklahoma. So that's why a jazz museum in Oklahoma City makes sense. Thank you.
I'd like to make one comment on Rosetta's group that was doing the design for her museum. The one thing that disturbed me about that, she had 13 or 12 teams of 2 students each. There was not one black student in the group.
Wow.
We need to get our kids also into the air. While we're talking about music, they were not musicians. They had no expertise or no soul feeling for what they were designing. We really need to get the kids involved in all aspects of the arts.
What they have to do is design, OU agreed, they're the ones that, well, I took a package and they did the other ones too, because they saw I had part of jazz is, and they thought Oklahoma would be lucky to have an art farm in Oklahoma, there. And so, but we have nothing to do with the black students going to OU to learn about interior design and architecture. That's something that we have no control over.
We started out with 2. It was two black students in the class, and I think one was from Africa. But they didn't end up completing the class.
We didn't have any, did you know of any other architectural firms or groups of students anywhere that could contribute toward this project?
I'm not saying you did anything wrong. I'm just saying we need to speak with the kids. We need to lead some of the children into that direction also.
Yeah,
That was
as children, that's what I'm saying. That's
And
part
what-
of it. We have to teach our children to go to school and to expose them to the arts and what have you. But we have nothing to do with how many students, just in those departments, that's something that black community get involved in, art and interior design and architecture. We want to get into sports and what else? Sports and what else? Music. But see, we need to let them know that there are other fields too that they can participate in. Engineering. Yeah, one of my brothers is an engineer, and he has about 5, 6 patents. That's one of his favorite trumpets. But all of his life, he was always trying to show us, like his mother and daddy would leave, and he would climb up on the table and bring out some bowls and put soap in there and such, and we all be looking at him, He was showing us some of his interior, his skills, as an engineer.
There's a young man downstairs who's talking about how he's working on hydro, on the motor something to make cars run off water. And he showed us how he had got one to do it and all this kind of stuff. Oh yeah, he gave me the site.
All right, let Dr. Turner speak.
Okay.
Okay, well, this is gonna be quick. I'm gonna run through this presentation. This is the piece actually, the one that we're showing because my computer crashed. I'm showing you a presentation from 5 years ago. It's been updated, but we'll just push through. This is the Cotton Pickers of America money that Sheriff Crawford and President Center that we intend to make into a national park. We're working in partnership with the Ed Dwight, who has the most African American related or themed monument sites throughout the country. Google him, he's amazing. So next slide. So in this presentation, normally it's students, but I'm going to go through all of these topics. Next slide. So it is a fact that on plantation. It was primarily the forced exploited labor of enslaved people that created profit for cotton plantations in the South. That's what the fact. The big question becomes, what really happened to grandma and them on those cotton plantations? Do children today, or what do children today need by education, instruction, and our experience there, understand and appreciate the significance of the independence of cotton culture, enslaved people, sharecroppers, tenant farmers, and the like, to enhance their self-esteem? Why have so many elders become silent about their stories, their legacy of cotton pickers, their sweat, equity, and investment to the cotton, and their unselfish vision to obtain the American dream? When you ask students this question, they say they gave up on it. I said, why they give up on you? Because we're not listening. Why you not listening? Because we got cell phones. Boom, there it is. So something about cell phones has, for the first time in human history, caused elders to say, you know what? Okay. You know what? You don't want to hear what I got to say. You distracted. You got to tweet. You got to text. Oh, and what I got to say. Oh, okay. So for the first time in human history, grandmama and them stop talking. That's dangerous, and it's scary to think what will happen in the fact that they're not passing the wisdom, that baton on to the next generation. Oh my God. What can I do personally then as a professor to help interpret a more inspirational message and the legacy of cotton pickers and sharecroppers, people that relate to their historic countries that stem from the shores of Africa, because that's where cotton was generated. That's where cotton, the essence and the genesis of cotton is in Africa, not the American South. It is not indigenous to America, if you can believe that. It's amazing that cotton, I didn't ask you to go forward. The shores of Africa are very, very important to emphasize here, and you'll see that in a second, to the cotton kingdom in American South and to develop global economies in Europe. In Europe, Cottonopolis is the first industrial city in the world, which is Manchester, England, based on the cotton that was shipped from these shores in New Orleans and the Carolinas and New York, etc. So what can we do collectively as a group to honor our ancestors and give respect to those who truly earned it? Is the big question. This is a 102-year-old woman who, when I told her that I was working on this project, and I said, we want to erect a monument that honors them, and this was for Smile. She was a retired teacher from Mountain Bayou. And this is how she looked at me with a smile. She was like, so she was so pleased to hear that. Finally, someone's going to erect a statue, a monument, or something to just honor grandma here. Yes. And I love this sister here because look what she said. Say, wait a minute, you gonna honor me? Yes, with your dirty, sweaty, probably musty as hell, but yes, I want to honor you. I think you're beautiful for having done all of the work. We appreciate you. Yeah. So these are the design plans that Ed Dwight came up with. And again, there's so much more. I love it.
Now, Dwight also did the one in Texas, if I'm not mistaken, isn't he?
Yes, we just did that.
We just did that.
So these are the elements that he's come up with, and that's why I like to think that's me walking through the pearl gates of the cotton picker monument. Yes.
Next.
And if you can imagine,
I clicked twice.
go back one because if you can imagine just the glass being etched with the images and spiritual presence of our ancestors just hovering over the actual museum. That's the museum
all to be constructed?
Yeah. And so we identified Mississippi Valley State University since it is, okay, you do.
Where they gonna do it? Where?
Mississippi Valley State University. It was in fact a cotton plantation or cotton patch. And so this is like the entry point, and all of the bricks will be encased or engraved with all of the people who want to be a part of this monument. So it's not just dedicated to a single person with a lot of money, but it's to all of us who had anything to do with cotton. So our grandparents and, you know, parents even, and some of ourselves even who pick cotton can also be a part of this monument site. So, and here is where we tell the story of the Africans coming over with those skills someone mentioned earlier about the gullah geechee and the rice, the tobacco, the indigo, and the cotton. Basically were skills that came from Africa. When the Africans got off those ships as enslaved people, they weren't slaves, they were enslaved. They had skills. They knew how to build cities. They've been running countries for thousands of years. And so they came with all of the kinds of skills that were needed to build a new nation. And through those Charleston ports, when they came off the ships, they were basically interviewed for what skills that you had, right? And so you were dispersed in a way that was complementary of your skills. And so they would send people here, there, whatever, as it related to cotton, tobacco, rice, sugar, and indigo. So that story needs to be told. They also came over with the cotton seed and the gin. Eli Whitney did not create or come up with some ingenious idea. It was an African who taught him. And so here is where we will have a live sculptural garden, monuments or statues, miniature statues, people life size, actually. And then we will combine it with actors who will come alive on occasion and start telling the story of the Africans coming over with skills. This is the story of the plantation south. And then if you transfer us over here, this is sharecropping. So we went from a system of no pay to a system of low pay. And then finally here where we are today with all of the great contributions that we have made to this country and to this world. This is a monument that you will see out in the lobby that's 30 feet high and the museum there. So he has also designed a water treatment. A lot of story in there. Okay, cotton was the essential reason for the Civil War, period. Cotton. And having enslaved people to pick it, because again, it was the number one commodity for over 200 years now. All other industries combined did not equate to the profit that was being made in cotton. So who was to maintain the control of the economic resources? The richest people in the country right before the Civil War was here in Mississippi, in Natchez, Mississippi. They were the richest folks. And then we'll get into Wall Street in a minute, but cotton is not indigenous, like I said before, but it is to Africa. It became the number one driver for nearly 200 years, due in large measure to the expertise of y'all. Cotton became known as white gold, giving rise to the cotton kingdom and the Mississippi Delta, the global cotton empire, enabling trust funds for people like Trump and others to be generated for several hundred years. So, of course, you can see where Trump had all of this excess money where he can basically be a failure at hundreds of business opportunities. Everything he touches failed, but he still had enough money to keep coming back again. But it all started with father who too had investment in the New York Exchange and enterprises that all related to cotton and distributing cotton, insuring cotton, banking cotton, shipping cotton, all of that, marketing cotton. So provided the financial footing for Wall Street in New York, shipping railroad, distribution centers in New York, or Leeds, Carolina, Leeds, Jordan, and bricks and Prince Colony, textile industry. Next. entire family had to work together from kin to kin. Y'all know what kin to kin is? Y'all city folks, y'all don't know about the kin to kin. Who know what kin to kin is?
You say candy cane?
Kin to kin.
To kin. Ooh, y'all
Can't
really
see,
are
can't
city
see.
folks.
Can't see in
Ms.
the
Oprah,
morning.
what's kin to kin? Kin to kin.
Ooh, that's how I work, from can to can.
Yes.
Yes,
Carry the king from crown.
can to
Can,
can.
can see to can't see.
Can't see, can't see, from morning to night.
From morning to night, kin to kin. Kin see in the morning, the can't, actually it was can't see in the morning, can't see at night, right? And so families tended to have more children in order to help out in the fields, and each of them had a quota. You're gonna meet a gentleman in a minute who had to pick 400 pounds of cotton every single day at the age of 14, or he would get beat by his father because they had a quota, and they would get kicked off the plantation if each of them didn't come up with at least a bale of cotton every day.
Can I interject something real quick, quick little story?
No,
So
no, I'm moving.
We
We ain't got time for your
We have this
story.
lady named Betty Williams. I gotta tell you, she was in Galveston. She gave us a story about picking cotton, and she said we used to pay a nickel a pound. And she said the old lady told her, she said, go out while everybody else is following around. Go out and start picking your cotton while it's wet. You can get more money. She was
Get the weight, get the weight.
the weight. She said, I got damn cotton in the bottom of my bag. I'm
And they
like,
put rocks in it. Okay, schools were closed. No, sad. Go ahead. Schools were closed, at cotton and picking season time because, you know, they had this quota. So hence the education was compromised in our communities. And this is such an important point because we look at, well, how come grandpa can't read? They didn't allow, I mean, all the way from the beginning of slavery to just recently, you know, policies were in place where, no, they would shut the schools down for black kids, and the white kids can still go to school. And then those white kids that did pick cotton had to pick it after they got out of school. So their education wasn't compromised ever. But all the black schools, because they were segregated, they were able to do that and deny the black children their education. And we still see the impact of that today with the first generation university students who try. They come and they're trying to learn, but they don't have an understanding of what it takes to be disciplined like that in a classroom environment because they at home with loud music, all kind of conversations going on around them. Nobody's respecting the fact that what it requires is a library kind of situation for them to really go deep on the studies of science and math, all of the things that they need to become true leaders in our community. So the distraction was always a problem. Go back one slide, please. So African cotton, historically cotton in most parts of Africa was a subsistence crop that grew in the garden alongside vegetables and other crops we use for sustaining food, clothing, and shelter. Not necessarily for capitalistic and exploitative gains that evolved through the slavery system. So we were growing cotton, but it was complementary to what we do. And you know, our system was barter system. You got tomatoes, I got carrots, I got greens, you got cornbread. We're gonna change it up and make sure that everybody has what they need. Okay, next. Next. All right, these images are important. The next few images are very important. This is an important thing that Ralph Ellison wrote about the Beaufort, South Carolina image you see here in 1965 or 62. And what he was saying essentially is that I am not ashamed of my grandparents or ancestors for having been enslaved or sharecropping cotton pickers. I am only ashamed of myself for having at one time been ashamed. How dare you? How are you going to be ashamed of what they did to survive and the choice that they made to not become a beast like their oppressors? They chose not to kill their white folks. Okay? And that was because they knew what it would do to their spirit and to the spirit of their children. If their children incorporated that same beastly mentality, we would see a whole other kind of beast. And that is why. That is the essence of who we be as people who bring love and life and energy and spirit to everything we do and touch. That's why we're the best at everything we do. Everything we do, we become the best.
Say it again.
Okay? The best. Give us a little money and a little education, we at the top. And nobody can touch us. All they can do is imitate us. And then we be imitating the imitators. Ain't that a chill? Next. All right, this lady, from can to cane, from sun up to sundown, we did the work that had to be done. Now, the next few slides, I just want you to meditate on and click through, as we click through real fast, or not real fast, I give it every 30-second beat, and keep it going, just keep going.
Oh, I just wanted to go back to that image, the previous image.
Go back on, this is reading the whole.
Does anybody know what whole cakes are?
Yeah, I know what they are.
No,
Oh,
young people,
Your brother,
don't know.
your son, no?
I hope they be fried in the,
Yeah, the big old biscuit, and that would
No.
scoop what, with the whole?
no,
That's how
they
you
would,
did?
they would, build a fire in the cotton field.
Mhm.
And they mix up the meal
They
and
cook it on
water,
the cake.
and they would put the cake, the meal on the
On the
stove
grill.
and put it on the fire.
That's the origin of it.
That was whole cake.
Thank you.
okay, so you had
Yeah,
to put your cake on the hole.
On the hole.
On the hole.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, I normally would have some blues music or some really profound sounds, but listen very quietly to what these images are saying. The people who peeled, picked, planted, chopped, spun cotton were, by every measure, the hardest working people in America. They deserve our respect and not our shame. Next.
Dr. Tennessee, while we're going through the images, not Hobby Lobby, somebody, had a line not too long ago of cotton, home decor that raised a bunch of ruckus. In light of what you're showing here, should it have caused, should we have been so offended by it or ashamed of it?
I think that was the message that was meant to go, but it deserves our respect.
Right.
But we have to interpret the narrative. The way it's told
Okay.
is what's objective, and it makes us feel ashamed.
Yeah.
But if we are controlling the narrative, we can speak power into it, we can speak pride into it, we can speak respect into what this actually is. It's the building of this country. It is where they got the money to build this country. All of the resources that came from cotton and from us and from the energy that we put into it. This is the basis of American culture. This is it.
Dr. Cotton,
That's not in my slide. Yes.
only thing, and this is a beautiful presentation, but is there anywhere you all can show more of how this particular industry made America rich? So we should show them big and fine.
No. What I said was,
We want people to know
Where's
that
that?
it made America rich.
what I said was, this is 5 years old. It's been updated. My
Oh,
real
okay.
presentation is on my computer that has French.
Okay, but if we can really basically show that this is what made America rich, and we need to see it.
And I do have that.
Okay, good.
So I just, again, I don't know what's going on.
I just want people to know that this is what America.
Yeah. Keep going.
And need to show it, and I think you should have to explain it, because they need to see it.
Keep going. And so much of this too is also to show that it's an international thing now, after the Civil War, and because we cut the cotton distribution off, then they dispersed into the rest of the world through colonization. And it was through the colonized territories, all of it again, hinged on textiles. And the textile industries in Africa, India, where the sun never set on the British Empire, that's how they colonized those different countries, is through the textile industries. And now, in Africa, you can't really get African print unless it comes through European textile industries and manufacturing. Most of the African textile manufacturing has been disabled since colonization. So they're slowly building back up. But keep going. I just wanted you to also see the children that were out there, because they too had a big role to play, and that was their education. This was their classroom out there in the cotton field. We had to do everything out there, and that included using the bathroom, having lunch, and from kin to kin. Whatever you needed to do in the course of the day was done out there in the cotton field. So this is showing the international aspect of cotton now after the Civil War. So the price that was paid was through the Indian Native American Removal Act. And so that was the price, giving up the land to make room for cotton. Was the price paid? Oh, there was more in with this. Keep going. Go faster. So we have to. Okay. So yes, it was more than just black folks out there. That is true. But I'd say 95% was up. So pushing through for the sharecropping again, story that is told from there, no pay to low pay. More. Go ahead, keep pushing.
So this was a class.
This was
a class.
Well, it is, that I had much more of the story about Wall Street, for example. The story of Wall Street is simply that Wall Street in New York was established so that people who know where their enslaved people were being distributed to and where the cotton was being sold. So that was the first operation, and the main reason for Wall Street to be established was to transact the business of slavery and the products that was being produced by the enslaved people. Keep going. This is a long show. I'm sorry, but there's a lot of images here that just keep going. And that's the way, and this is out in New Orleans, and this okay, we're coming up to the last one. This is how it looks once now it's being produced, and how the workers still have to sort through and, sort the good cotton and the low lint cotton. And all was being so successful for the rest of the nation except for us, and the black farmers finally did start to receive benefits of it. This is, I'm sorry, this is going longer than I want.
Guys, like one thing I think gets lost sometimes in the process of mentioning this for to continue the legacy or to put more positivity into the legacy of slavery or enslavement. People don't talk about the conditions of what it was like out there, whether snakes they had to fight off, or like the heat being in the south, or people passing out, like what did they do, people dying out there in the field, sometimes they get lost. So young people really don't understand what it took that they endured to pick the cotton for
Right, and I really would love to have Ms. Opal speak on this, because we want to first just thank them, all of those images. It feels this appreciation, spiritually, I know we're connected like that, and when we express appreciation for our ancestors, it's connecting, and we could do nothing without bringing that spirit and that energy into the fold of our efforts. So we should always, just like we're supposed to be pouring life into, just like we're supposed to be opening up with prayer, just like we're supposed to be getting in circles and just, and tuning and bringing through that spirit. It is important. And then when we act like we're ashamed of the work, when we act like we're ashamed of our history, that's when they vacate the premises and say, okay, just like grandmama and them with the youngsters today. Okay, you don't want to listen? You don't want to hear us? You don't want to connect with us? You figure it out on your own and see where you end up. And that's kind of where we are today, right? Okay, so always thank them and oh, this was some of the work that we're doing. And then in Nola, we have front porch sessions where we gather these stories and collect the narratives of these people, so that we will always treasure them and always remember the story and appreciate and respect them forever. Ms. Opal, if you do have anything you would like to share on this topic, I would love to hear it.
Young people, and I'm gonna call all of you young people, you're not 95, so you're young people. We have a job to do, and it's to bring our young people into the fold. They simply have not been taught. They don't know. We can't blame them because we haven't taught them. So they don't want to sit down and listen to you. Well, I was made to. See how bad I am? But we simply have to get it over to them that there's so much that still has to be done, that we can't afford to do the, they don't want to listen to me. I don't care if they don't. Well, you gotta find ways to make them listen.
That's right.
Because it's a life or death struggle. And we are responsible. Just like my parents. I couldn't listen to my mother. Hello. Out of high school at 16, married before 17, 4 babies so fast to make your head swim. And I go home with them and say, I'm ready to go to college now. And she says, I got no money to send you to nobody's college. But I'll keep your children. And it took me 3.5 years to get through with that college. I had kids back home. I had work with them. And sometimes it takes getting to the bottom before we go do what naturally needs to be done. I can't stress enough that we've got to make Juneteenth a national holiday. Most people think of it as something that happened in Texas, but it involves all of us. I don't care where we are. And it's not just a festival. It's got all kind of components that we need to see that our children and everybody else's children know what we're doing. I know you've probably been here, and I'm not talking up a lot of time, but just know we are all in it together. You know, no little I's and big P's and Q's and that sort of stuff. And I'm for one, and I've said it so many times, on Juneteenth, a national holiday by any means necessary. And I mean that. We've been approached by uh, people from the Republican side. You maybe know that 45 says he was going to make Juneteenth a national holiday. And I sat on a plane close to Ben Carson, thought I wouldn't get to talk to him, but I did. And my message was, if he doesn't do it before the election, he ain't gonna do it, because he ain't gonna get elected.
That's right.
And that means we have to make ourselves a committee of one. Everybody you know, even you don't know, you gotta find out if they registered to vote. They can go vote early. They can be sure they get to the polls. It's your responsibility. If he gets in another term, it's because we didn't do our part.
They have to close their cheek, that's what they're gonna do.
Okay, and so to close with that, I just wanted to say real quickly that Mount Bayou was the place where we had initially designed this place to be, but from its beginning. How can I get rid of this stuff? Okay, well, anyway, moving on. I'm just gonna click through because it's the ending and I will see. We have resolutions and commemorations from everybody, from our senators to the president to the front page of the Clarion Ledger, which is the Jackson, the main paper in Mississippi. I did a whole story. That's me with straight hair, if you can imagine. It was a wig. Anyway, this is the monument that we sent to BB, who was our honorary chair. Maya Angelou was our honorary chair. And this is what we sent to President Obama. And the next time we see this, hopefully it'll be in his presidential library. These are my beautiful spiral stairs that go up to my diva den. But anyway. Okay, yeah, Maya Angelou, Bobby Rush is our current chair. I just want to.
Bobby Rush at place now?
He's our current chair. So we've been doing a series of symposiums at the university, and so this is what Maya has said. She said, scarred, rough, chain-like hands full of fluffy cloud like white cotton, a poignant picture of American history. We have all come far, former black slaves and former slave owners, all trying to live free and fair lives in our American present. We have far to go, but let us be proud that we have come this far with courage. We must not be crippled with guilt nor with hate. It is imperative that we remember our history, for it is true. One who does not learn from history is doomed to repeat it. And she wrote that as our charge in 2012. And that's what we have to abide by and truly incorporate. This is my father, and this is David Honeyboy Edwards, who sat there at my kitchen counter and picked cotton for me. He was the oldest bluest man alive at the time. But this is an important story. I'll close on this. Come on, Daddy, come back up here. My father is the reason for this movement, and it's because he, after I went home, I'm from San Francisco. I know nothing about no cotton, okay? So I go home and I put a piece of cotton boll that I brought home from the Delta in his hand, kind of like how he's holding it now. And I said, Dad, I brought you a gift. He had lost his vision by this time because of diabetes. And so he didn't see it coming. And so when I put it in his hand, and then he was trying to figure out, what is this you done brought? I said, I brought you a gift from the Delta, the Cotton Kingdom. I brought you the, he said, is this a sock? Is this a handkerchief? What you got? I said, Daddy, that's cotton. He said, ah! And then he looked in my direction, even though he couldn't see me, and he said, don't you ever put that shit in my hand again. And I was like, first of all, he don't cut, and he don't cut to me. And it's like, what did I do? I'm sorry. And then then my mother standing on the other side of the room shaking her head, said, that child just don't understand. And I said, understand what? I didn't know the horrors and the pain and the trauma, the fact that you had to bleed every time you go out there, picking that cotton and working from kin to kin. It was horrible. It was painful. And people are traumatized still to death behind cotton. And it's like, how dare us not know the trauma, the pain. And so it just became my business to understand. I did my dissertation behind cotton because of that. And it was like, oh my God, we got to fix this. I love my daddy, and he loved me, and he just cussed me out because I was. So, you know, and it was because of that passion that he expressed to me, which made me understand. And he didn't even grow up in the Delta where it was really harsh. He grew up in Choctaw County on a farm that they owned, but yet the trauma was still within him. So you can imagine what our people who have gone through, especially in the Delta, how they feel. And so we just need to appreciate that, give respect to the work that has been done, and figure out a way to be more respectful and honor that legacy. So with that,
All right. Hey, everyone. Thank you, guys.
Let me suggest that each of you get a book called Cass. That's the name of it. It's by Wilkinson, Isabella Wilkinson.
oh yeah,
Please get the book.
this is her latest one.
Yes, she's written a book called The Warmth of Every Sun, but please get Cass. It will so enlighten you.
CASTE, cast.
Not an S, just Cass.
All right, everyone. Thanks a lot. We covered a lot of stuff, but in the true Juneteenth manner, everything didn't go as planned, but it did go. So I appreciate all that. When we recap, first of all, thank for everybody. Get with and think about and send us on next Saturday's phone calls that model, that slogan, that thing that says cooperation, economics, moving forward, being empowered. Okay? Instead of the board of directors working that out and hashing out amongst us, we're going to get feedback from you guys for the thing for 2021. Okay? And we want to have it very quickly, so the next couple Saturdays we'll be trying to hash that out. Number two thing, remember, check that box on your registration ballot and get other people to. We got to stop. We got to start taking the ballot. We got to be those elected officials. Okay? We can be the watchdogs. We can be the people that set the standard. Juneteenth is cutting head. You guys are spearhead stuff. We need to lead that going into there first. Okay? Make sure we get involved in that election process. Also, get together, and if you want to be on the commemorative coin committee, you want to work that out. That announcement will be coming up on the next couple Saturdays. We'll be working with Caleb Gilchrist. We'll be working with a couple other people in the House of Representatives on both the Republican and the Democratic side to get the commemorative coin legislation pushed through. Okay. Remember, this Juneteenth is for the nation. It's not for us. We don't need Juneteenth. Okay? Sade don't need it. Penny don't need it. Right, you know. Rosetta don't need it. Okay? She's going to do the holiday. She's going to do it whether it's a holiday or not. We don't need the holiday. The holiday is for America. One of the great things that Don and John Thompson helped reinforce inside of me is that it's not for us. We already celebrate it. We already commemorate it. We do the things that are there. So this battle isn't for us. We're truly the people that are going to make America great by winning its soul back, by adding balance back to the holiday celebration. I've repeated that before again and again and again when they ask me. I've been doing it my whole life. So it doesn't make any difference. My uncle was Juneteenth. My dad was. My grandpa was. It's all through my whole family. So we don't need the holiday, but America needs the holiday, okay? America needs to be aware, America needs to be educated, and America needs to get socialized, okay? We need to execute those three things, all right? And everything that we do goes towards that. So when we come get ready, get with the commemorative coin program. If you got a story, if you got some history, get an interview. We didn't get it, then it was planned. Get with Dr. Turnipseed. We're going to be setting up some other things for you to get the stories into her, and so that she can start doing the podcast. And we're going to be registered. I've already started the process. We're going to be registered in the Google Podcast. We're going to be on a whole bunch of group TV, all kinds of stuff. We're going to be there, and it's going to be branded great, and it's going to be there. So we need you to get your stories in. Okay. Now, last thing we're getting ready to do is we have we do a couple presentations. Eddie's on his way. He's stuck in traffic. He got back. But every year we give away a couple of awards to people who have made significant changes or advancements. I've done great work in Juneteenth over the years. Last year we gave an award out to Ron Brown. Ron worked diligently and very hard to make Juneteenth a legal holiday from the Day of Observance in Pennsylvania. It was a test case scenario for us to see what it would be like to move through the American government to the Pennsylvania government is most close to the system. For walking last year and bringing attention to Juneteenth, the guy that Star Wars went to is local leader. Okay? So every year we pick people who are part of the group, and this is for us, right? So he and I talk about them. We weren't still from board members, and we go to people and try to figure out who's going to give what, and who's done what throughout the year. And we look at you guys all through the year and see what you're doing. This isn't not to inspire competition, but it is to recognize you, okay? Because listen, we all give our money, we give our heart, we give our soul, we give our time, we get a lot of stuff, don't really get a lot of stuff back, but at least in this way we can say that we acknowledge each other and what we've done and what we're going to continue to do, okay?
Can I modify?
Huh?
Like to modify a little bit. He says we've been doing it for a couple of years. Actually, Dr. Myers, we did the first awards in 2011. In 2011, those of you who were with us then know that Doc made a tour of the country. And as he went through each of the cities that he went to in 2011, he had me create plaques to recognize the musicians in each of those areas. So that year we did about 10 or 15 plaques. In Nevada, we did Galib Ghalib, who was a current musician. He was a piano player, pianist, and he has since transitioned. And we recognized Monk Montgomery, who was the brother of Wes Montgomery. So that was our year one in 2011. Throughout the years after that, Nevada continued it. And each year I have created plaques in Nevada for the pioneers of the Las Vegas area. So in Nevada, we have done almost 50 plaques over the years since 2011. And so we've gone forward and we're going to continue it there. And 3 years ago, we, as he says, we sat down and we talked about
Doing us.
taking it up, bringing it up to
Us.
date.
Bringing us, NJOF members.
So that's where we've come forward with that, with the plan from there. The first year we did, as he said, we did Ron the first year?
Ron.
We did Ron Brown. We recognized the Christian church in New Orleans. In New Orleans, where the 1994 we had the where they had the first meeting that led to the birth of the NJOF, and we also recognized John Mosley. So that was in the beginning, and as he says, we did Miss Opal. We've done Miss Opal, and we gave her a statue we called the Lady with the Star, or the Lady Reaching for the Star. So this year when we worked around to it. This year we're honoring, we started off with musicians, we came forward, we're doing NJOF. This year we went with Mississippi. So this year we have 2 awards for Mississippi. One is for Helen Sims, and the other one is for Eddie Carthan. And for Sylvia Myers.
You
want to do it?
So let's just read the plaque here. So we give 2 plaques to people who have done things to contribute to the Juneteenth nation. And Helen Sims has one, and it says, those whose love for progress.
I'm
and
sorry,
equality-
she wanted me to record that, so if you can start again. Say it.
Take two.
Okay, take two. So every year we create awards, and this year we're doing the Mighty Mississippi Award because we're close to Mississippi and Tennessee, and there's a lot of traction there. And so we picked two people out that have had contributions and to Juneteenth and to the community. One being Helen Sims, who has been involved in everything from the beginning, who is a great educator and teacher. She's taught me a lot. When I went down there to visit the museum, it gave me a lot of inspiration and knowledge about the whole story of the struggle, and we appreciated that. And the other one that you just guys heard today, you heard the story from Dr. Carson, his struggle, what he's gone through. And so the plaque reads, "To those who love for progress and equality is ever flowing. They work tirelessly to express their undying commitment to their city, county, and state. Their run runs as deep as strong as the mighty river that shapes this great state." October 17th, 2020, Memphis, Tennessee. The mighty Mississippi has that. And so, you know, we talk a lot. I know you guys are on the Saturday phone calls and you hear a lot. But I do know one thing, that Doc Myers was his family. And there's nothing that he couldn't do or get done without having that base, right? And so while there's many accolades and many tributes applied to Doc Myers, what he's done and how he's worked to shape this, we thought that we would take our time out this year to honor the lady that was behind Doc, Sylvia Myers, with the same thing. Because listen, it's just as much as hard work as putting Doc in the truck and sending him out of the road as it is going out on the road, especially when you got 4 kids. Okay, it's a challenge, it's a battle, and it's an issue. So we wanted to recognize Sylvia. She wasn't able to come. She wanted to, but she wasn't able to. So we'll get this down there to her. I think Sade will probably be doing the delivery, right? But we wanted to let her know our appreciation and that we did recognize that, and we do recognize the efforts that we got. I know all the kids. I've talked to them all, and I know how they feel, and what they went through and what Mom went through. So these are our annual awards, and we give about 3 of them out every year. We want to make sure that if we don't love each other, nobody else is going to love us. So we got to do it.
Allow me to read just of what we have on this particular one. We have, it is again to Sylvia Myers. It is the Juneteenth Ambassador, guiding America towards the Juneteenth Star of Freedom. National Juneteenth Observance Foundation, October 17th, 2020. Ms. Opal, we're sorry you don't have the only one now, but you loved yours so much. We had to go. We had to keep going with it.
Beautiful.
It is.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to have we're going to break now. I want to make sure that everybody's got that. Anybody got any last questions, any last announcements? Bob?
Where did you get that book?
Which book?
The Juneteenth.
The book that was just up there on the screen.
No, in your
That
hand.
book.
In your hand.
That's not a book.
That's our fault.
That's her presentation.
Well, it needs to be. How can we make that book?
It's my
There's it right there.
dissertation. It is a book. It's my dissertation.
Okay.
I can
Well,
share it.
These are the public. Okay, is it
I'm gonna share
public?
it with my daughters.
I'm revising now.
Okay. We can wait.
All right, you don't have to.
Changing from the dissertation to a book is a beast.
It
But it's like,
got yours?
yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Tatiana? Come up here. Tatiana, I've been watching you. So what I want you to do, as we get ready to break and go, so make sure I'm supposed to close the prayer. Okay. Tatiana's out of Brunswick. She has the focal down. She's done a lot of struggling down there, getting June keep going, and we appreciate you. We've all holding her. We've all holding you.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank thee for all that you have done, all that you made possible, Lord. Through your word, you said that all things are possible to those who believe. And Father, we believe in our ancestors. We believe in the Juneteenth movement. We all believe that through the work and the efforts of our ancestors and the people, the founders of the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation, those that supported, those that worked hard and diligently all over the nation to help make Juneteenth a national holiday. We just pray for their safety, for their wisdom, for their leadership. We thank you for putting into the minds of the people that have come here today to make this all possible. We just thank you that you keep us safe and pray for safe travels for those that have traveled to get here. Pray that the young ladies that have participated in the National Miss Juneteenth pageant will take from this a great learning experience, that they will continue to inspire their communities, and that they will inspire the whole entire world to just be better. Thank you again for all that you do. Forgive us of our sins. Forgive us when we don't do the things that you have called us to do. Thank you for just instilling in us a greatness, the call to do what you've asked us to do. May we do things according to your will. And I say this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. All right, everyone. Thank you very much. See you next Saturday. Keep in mind, theme for next year. Get people on the election ballot. Check out Dr. Trinity with the podcast and the Cotton Pickers Memorial.
Everybody want to.
Stay in touch with each other. Let's keep it together. Keep it rolling around. The one last thing we need to have right now before we go, I'm sorry, I forgot one last thing. A quick list. Rosetta, you got a piece of paper?
Solid the African
All
studies of the life and history.
We,
Yeah.
last thing is, we have a committee that wants to start planning the annual meeting for next year. It's in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Rosetta, Connie,
Dr. Little.
Dr. Little, what's her name? The digital legislation.
Connie Johnson.
Not Connie, the other one.
Nikki Knight.
Not Nikki, I know Nikki. Nikki's on the
Dr.
board.
Little.
No. She's in Tulsa. Yeah.
Well, you done.
Because,
Yeah. And they actually.
yeah, I can't think of her name right now. Yeah, we're all together, Kevin Matthews. So if anybody, you guys want to help with the planning committee next year, let Rosetta know so she can call you and start working out.
There's money out there that basically, if it's a historic site.
Yeah.
Government will give you money. And they go out and find.
She very
Hello. I should know about this.
So has the pageant started? Stephen, has it started?
What?
The pageant?
So
No.
the pageant, you didn't make an announcement about the pageant?
Oh, yeah, the pageant starts at 7 o'clock, about an hour.
Good thing you told me that. No, I'm just kidding.
I have.
And tell them the address.
It's at the Western Hotel,
Hey, you all would be.
which is about a half a mile from here.
Yeah.
Actually, less than
She'll
that.
have you in Atlanta.
Anybody over there sign this?
I do.
Well,
Okay.
Yes.
national organization. The one in Atlanta.
So they
I'm
should be
gonna let
coming,
you
they
observe
should be
that,
coming over there.
Yeah, they go all around, because they have events yearly. Historic places, historic sites, and they just, yeah.
Oh, shoot, now.
Okay, yeah, I was a member of ASCA. I remember ASCA with Dr. John Lewis Clark.
You know John over there?
You thought they wanted to.
I think, yeah, kind of dissipated.
No.
That along with the Melanie County. Yeah.
Okay, I said, gotta go.
You got a rush off?
I'm doing the pageant.
Okay. Where is that here or in the?
No, she's
I don't even know. At the Western.
We will see you at 7 o'clock at the Western Hotel.
At the Western. Steve, you driving over there?
Yeah.
I need to ride with you if you don't mind.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you have any more seats, Steve?
I just need to. If I can just say no. And then I